Hello, I'm Angela Blissbridge, and this is Connecting the Dots. Today we are just a couple days past the last quarter moon of a very, very potent new moon cycle that was actually part of an eclipse cycle which actually encompasses a 6-month period. So this has been an amazing opportunity beyond a normal new moon planting of seeds to really establish new ways of being that will carry forward, that we can develop over the next 6 months, or even a little bit longer, because eclipse effects can spread further out. What I would like to do before I actually talk about what is happening today is to give you a little bit of back end of how we got to this particular place today and why I'm being compelled to speak today, and give you a little more insight about this extremely potent period that we have been under and are going through. And excuse the crunching of the leaves underneath my feet here in Rimrock, overlooking the Verde Valley with Sedona up that direction. So enjoy the view and tune in to what I have to say. We have had a lot of portals open, or stargates, whatever you want to call them. An eclipse cycle is definitely a portal type effect, but we have also been under essentially a couple other really critical alignments that have occurred for what are called planetary nodes. Each of our planets in this solar system have two residences, so to speak, where they meet the solar plane, where the sun can send their energy out to us. It's like they're special little houses that contain the information of that planet and the energy of the sun. And when we come near that particular point, it gets super activated with the energy of that particular planet, magnetized by the sun and shot over to us here on Earth with the flavor of the particular position that it was in. So to me, it is like a portal opportunity to take in that energy of that planet and a whole lot more, and really work some ancient patterns, because these planetary nodes, they are almost fixed in their positions over many, many, many hundreds of years. They tend to stay in basically the same spot. And so they are sending signals to us to upgrade our collective. But even if it is a collective energy, it is actually affecting us on a more personal, enlightening sort of way, an opportunity to really rise out of old patterns and knock out what we have been doing and come into a very different way of being. And we've had Jupiter, Hygeia, which is the healing asteroid. We've had Vesta to light our flame. We've had Pluto super activated. We'll come back to that. And we have also had Saturn. And in a few days, on the 31st, we will have Neptune. So and those are the ones that are activated by the sun this month. And we also have a couple others that are activated by transits that are happening, slow-moving transits. One of the most important ones in my particular book, because I'm doing quite a bit of research and studies around surges of witch hunt type behaviors, xenophobia, and emancipation, which have similar flavors, and they are built around the Uranus and Venus planetary nodes, and those have been activated by Neptune. And so what that is, it's gobbledygook, I know, to you for the moment, but what it is asking us to do is reintegrate our ways of thinking across this planet and come into a way of accepting a more balanced way of being and accepting of all cultures and creeds, and so that we can integrate and come ultimately to the balancing of the divine feminine and masculine. That's ultimately, what they're asking for. And there's a flavor of this, this sky god Uranus that's eating Gaia, Earth, through Venus, the sky god Uranus, and Venus, Gaia, the Earth. In the misused way, it's Uranus and Gaia coming together and demolishing each other. It's the sky god is devouring Earth, and that is what is happening. Is that particular energy has been causing us to have fear of other cultures and other ideas and close our minds and our hearts. And as such, in order to compensate for what we should be getting from that beautiful sky god, is we are seeking the earth and ravage the earth, seeking something in search of a holy grail, so to speak, of what we cannot seem to get by the proper union of that divine feminine balance. But I'm getting a little bit more into my mystical stuff, and it's part of my research as well. But that has been very, very activated since just about the time that Trump announced that he would run for president. And it has been a great contributor, in fact, to how he did come into office. And it has actually been peaking through a few different points in 2018. With the transits of Pluto across its own nodes as well. So the two have come into these places that have caused this extreme rise of global hate and polarized thinking and a fear of immigrants and migrants and refugees and wanting to build walls around things and hold down to the old status quo. And because it is involving Pluto and Capricorn, it is a desperate need to change our old structures and systems. And this is a transit, those flavors that I'm talking about have been coming into a stronger positioning and getting more and more intense through 2000. They started coming on and building from 2015, and they've been maxing. They haven't quite, some of them have been peaking. Through the last month or two. They were very much at a peak around the elections, the midterm elections in November, and that is part of what contributed to the big shift. And whenever we have xenophobia, we also have other flavors in the world of emancipation. So we have this giant rise of the strength of the women, or people with all these cultural, indigenous cultures that are rising, and the women that are coming out and speaking about the things that have happened to them or they're no more. Those are a part of the emancipation stuff that have been rising with this same flavor of all this bigotry and racism and violence and related to that, and the fears to want to build the walls and shut out refugees across the globe that has been happening. That is peaking through what is happening with Neptune on Uranus, Venus, planetary nodes, and also because Pluto hit its peak of its planetary node in 3 points around in December. One of them was only 6 days off for when Trump decided to do the government shutdown. I am writing a blog on this particular information if you want to get a chance to look at that. But it's very interesting stuff, the stuff that happens over a long period of time. Now, the good news is all of that is starting to fade. And by 2020, it will be a very different picture with respect to that. And hopefully, what I see is happening with this rise in xenophobia and racism and anti-cultural, integration, is that it's been ripping the Band-Aid off of something that's been festering under the surface for a great deal of time. And now with all this stuff that's happening in Capricorn, it's forcing us to realign our values, realign our systems, our governments, our leadership, to come into a place of more integration and balance, to accept that Earth needs to be taken care of and not ravaged as it has been. So I haven't even gotten to the eclipse and why we're at just a little past the last quarter of this particular moon cycle. All of this fed into this particular very potent solar and lunar eclipses that we had. The solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse, started on January 5th, right after the planetary node alignments, which I have articles in my blogs about, of Jupiter, Hygeia the healer, and Vesta. So our flames were lit and our hearts were turned on, and our commitments to ourselves came on to kind of realign to seriously realign our ways. So it was sort of like a New Year's resolution on steroids. So this is one of a life-changing, not just, I'll do it for a little bit. There's been a compelling reason to change for a big way in a longer term. that was seeded with this new moon. And any moon cycle is an opportunity to seed an intention and to develop it into a fruiting and flowering at the full moon. This particular full moon was a total lunar eclipse that was happening through quite a bit of North America, and so a lot of me personally, it was an amazing cycle to go more inward because it was in Capricorn, and helping us, asking us to take a really deep look at our resentments, our ancestry, and where we're coming from, so that we can take responsibility for the steps we've skipped and come into a bigger place of our personal sovereignty with proper boundaries and rightful ways of governing ourselves and others in the community, so that we can more effectively integrate with rules that are aligned to the truth of the universe. So this is, with that fruiting, how did we come into our sovereignty at the full moon? We are being able to start to harvest that particular crop, but because it is an eclipse, we get to harvest this for 6 more months to see how much we can even make that crop go even further and expand it, and make it much more potent for a long-lasting effect, a major life change with all these portals that are open across through all those planets I mentioned briefly. And anyway, now we are actually in the harvesting phase, the final harvesting phase, and taking our sights forward to the next cycle, which will happen on February 7th. I didn't actually, I think it is February 7th. It'll be on my blog. I do have a calendar on my blog where you can actually see the specifics of when these events do occur. But we are clearing away more of the old patterns that we no longer need, that are no longer serving us. Taking more responsibility for our actions and stopping the blame, and working on compassion for ourselves and others, and learning that we each come into this lifetime with very specific agreements that we're going to uphold, but we only have a certain amount of, we all have talents and gifts, and we also are bringing in a lot of baggage. So even though we sign up for this big package that we're going to take care of, we may not have the resources or the capacity at this particular cycle and of our life soul path to actually fulfill some of those obligations. So when we look at someone else who is trying to do their own journey, they may not be able to have done what you expected, even if it is a normal thing like parenting. You know, we don't get parenting right. We just don't. I don't know if there is anyone that does. But for us to hold resentments for what others have failed to do is only causing suffering for ourselves. So it is time to release that. There's an imperative to release all of those blames and let that go, so we can step into a stronger place of our own personal responsibility, our own personal boundaries, and our own sovereignty and deeper truth to ourselves, and aligned in a stronger place where we can integrate with others and come to a place of co-creating and collaborating and integrating and accepting each other through a more loving energy that is more receiving and more abundant and golden prosperity for all beings. Anyway, I've rattled on for a good number of minutes, and I will try to post a little bit of extra information with this, and many blessings as we come into the finality of this particular potent new moon cycle, and we will be having Neptune's nodes hit on the 31st, so feel a lot of opportunity to come into a more compassionate place is going to support us through this final phase of this realignment that we have been going through. So many blessings. And I wish peace, love, harmony, abundance for all beings. May you have a very blessed final bit of this moon cycle, and see you on the next Connecting the Dots. Namaste. So much love to you all. Well, I'm borrowing from other great ones out there. So anyway, many blessings, and we'll see you soon.